if you train yourself to achieve on a high level, right, you'll now have that muscle built, right? Most people wait for their passion, something inspiring to say, oh yeah, I'm going to become that person then, right? And then when your passion comes, you're not even capable of taking advantage of it at a high level because you haven't trained yourself to be able to achieve to that extent.
The top 3 responses that I get when I ask, why do you want to leave corporate America, are that you want financial freedom, you want to own your own time, and you want to build a legacy for this generation and generations to come. Now, this is not a solo job. In order to transition from your 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship, it's going to take community and it's going to take resources. And I've created the community of pioneers who are going to wrap around you and help you make that transition successfully. So if you're interested in leaving your job, go ahead and click that information below. Let's get into the community and let's transition from your 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship successfully. Now let's get back to the episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Work and Play podcast. I'm your host, Ariel Young, and I have the crazy Brandman Sean Taylor here to join me for a crazy cool conversation. You notice I had to use the correct name. I know we peoples, but I still got to come correct with the name.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate you for being here.
Yeah, for sure. It's a nice little setup you got here.
It's lit, right?
Yeah, I got to step mine up now.
Look, I'm learning. Look, so just know that this is all, we are cross-sharing things in advance. All right? So really happy for you to be here. You know, on the Work and Play podcast, I love just having great conversations with my friends about the cool things that they got going on, their career journeys, and what kind of things are in store in the future. So without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself?
All right, cool. Sean Taylor, aka Brandman Sean, as you alluded to earlier.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm an entrepreneur, generally speaking. Specifically, I have 2 companies, one called Brandman Network, where we serve artists through educating them and providing an environment where they can connect, collaborate with other artists, but also get advice from music industry experts.
Okay.
All right. And in that environment, the whole idea is for them to be able to build themselves up from ground zero, all right, into having an established fan base and established career, something that's more sustainable. Now, on the other end, we work with higher end clients, typically for our bigger budgets. I have an agency called Contrabrand Agency, and this agency, we can work with artists who are ground zero, but they gotta have a lot more money, right? Because we're the agency that's doing the work, putting it all in for you. We can teach that information in the other company, but we're working with major labels, quite a few pretty big artists that people know, and then artists from all the way to the top, all the way down to the bottom.
Dang, so you have really set your empire to go from small to big, which is what a lot of us entrepreneurs really want to do. Like we want to serve the big clients and the small clients.
Yeah.
So how did you start small and go big, or did you start big and then go small?
I say I started small because I started off with a YouTube channel, right? And then as I realized the opportunity in the YouTube channel, I was like, all right, let me just try out some business. I was just doing consultations and stuff like that. I didn't like having a random phone conversation that then I had no idea if the results happened or not. No kind of follow up. And eventually from there, I was like, yo, man, how can I watch people's results? How can I help them get an environment that's going to keep them on track? Because I knew I wasn't a manager. That's just not my personality. A huge part of all this stuff when it comes to entrepreneurship is knowing your personality, being very self-aware. I was like, nah, I can't. I've seen managers wake up, get out of bed. I'm not that guy. It's this is for you. I'm just, it's a wrap, right?
Yeah.
So, I came up with the concept of Brandman Network, where I could have more of a community and more of a guided process that's a little bit, it's not school exactly, but it is course driven at its core, and things have evolved from there. But at that, I'm somebody who doesn't like to be full of BS. I don't know if we can curse here, so I'll just say it like that. Because at the end of the day, when you're talking and you have this social following, at some point, I feel like if you're talking all the time, you're gonna be full of it. You're gonna be lying. Like if you create videos just to create videos, particularly if you're in like education or something, all right, or maybe commentary or something. But like, you know, if you're doing just creative content, funny, that's a little different. But like, because there's only but so many truths.
Yeah.
And people want some more sauce, new sauce, and I have to be like, yo, bro, there's no more sauce. You're like, this is it. You gotta do it. So to make sure I stay educated in my space and continue to grow, that's one of the reasons that I looked at the agency, because I'm actually remaining a practitioner, right? And then building a company where we stay at the forefront of the research and everything necessary, all the new tactics, what actually works. We have the budgets and the client base that actually can make the research happen. And then that continues allows us to fund educating the marketplace and making sure that we have this validity and say, hey, no, we did this for real. This is just some theory. I didn't just watch some other videos, or I didn't like come up with some plan that sounds great. This is really what we're doing, and we're getting real results. People are paying us a lot of money for this. You just need to follow these steps.
Right, implement. Because when you say there's no more sauce, it's not that there's no more sauce up here, but there's no more sauce that you can capitalize on until you implement the first couple of steps that 100%. I gave you.
100%.
I got you.
That's the game right there.
I got you. So congratulations for that 100K subscriber mark on YouTube.
Appreciate that.
That is so dope. And it's the pinnacle of a lot of like influencers who want to go on YouTube. First of all, myself, because I'm just now getting on YouTube. I'm getting into this space. But it's also dope to see that you created an empire, one around something you enjoyed that might seem like a hobby on the face of things, but then you established an organization for the client, and then created an infrastructure around the client so that they can grow. And then you went bigger and started to help agencies do the same thing, which ultimately informs the client who wants to be that big brand.
Yeah.
So if I get it right, you help artists who want to build their brand and want to be, the next Soulja Boy, right?
The fact that you chose Soulja Boy is hilarious. But hey, Soulja Boy got stats and he made money for it. So yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
We gonna stick with Soulja.
Yeah. So because from a business perspective, the way I look at Soulja Boy is he used his social following to build a brand. And even if people hate on his music, his strategy, his business strategy, and the way that he gets around his community is bulletproof.
He's still at the forefront of a lot of social media in terms of using certain things. We all know that he popped on YouTube and used that and capitalized way more than he was the one who did that first. Now, even for artists at his level, he's using TikTok better than a lot of artists are using TikTok. So, Soulja Boy, he's shown throughout the years that he knows how to keep a pulse on stuff and pop back up whenever he needs some money or whatever makes him pop back up.
Yeah. And the cool thing,
that's what we're training him for.
That's what I was just about to say. You actually teach that. So I've been watching you on your social media. I've been looking at more of your technical teaching type videos. So it sounds like that's exactly what you teach your people, your community to do. So we're going to get into that.
Okay.
But first of all, what everybody doesn't know is so I know you through my bestie, so Courtney. And Courtney was on the Work and Play podcast.
Shout out.
Shout out. And so even though the name Work and Play kind of evolved over the years, some of the best times that I remember in our past was before you went into entrepreneurship, and I'm just over there, me and Courtney over there working on our laptops, and you were doing your thing. Like you had different endeavors over the years.
Yeah.
So let's start. I'm curious, when did your bug for entrepreneurship begin?
I've always had it.
Really?
Yeah. I remember being single digits, and my mom would be like, "Oh, you shouldn't say this kind of stuff in public. You'll sound crazy, or you're not gonna be able to get no job, or you need to do this so you can get a job, blah blah blah." And I always told her I wasn't gonna work at a corporation. I was gonna work for myself. And I don't even know where that came from back then, because entrepreneurship wasn't popping in the '90s in terms of everybody wants to be it. That's a newer thing.
Yeah.
But I always, for whatever reason, said that. And when I think back to it, I don't understand. I feel like, it's like, man, you were a kid. You don't even know what you're talking about. I feel like I don't know what I was talking about, but for some reason it was in me. Even I would do little stuff, right? Where I was at, I was at this school called Kelly Lake, this after school program in Decatur, and I would draw pictures and sell them.
Okay.
Right, and that was like a nice little hustle, And then I used to love Dragon Ball Z, and I drew this dope ass picture of this Super Saiyan version of Trunks. He's still my favorite, like looking Super Saiyan. One particular the way his hair is and stuff. And this one kid wanted it, and I was surprised. Like I killed the picture so much, like I was surprised. I didn't even know I had that level of drawing in me at that point. And this kid wanted it, and I was like, oh man, no, I don't want to get rid of this one right here. This one, it's hard. But he said he had $20 for me. All the other pictures were selling for like $1. I don't know where this little kid got $20. He was younger than me. I was like 6 or 7, and so he had to be like 4 or 5. I don't know where he got 20 from. I ain't even never heard numbers like that. So I was like, God, yeah, I'm about to get this man this picture. And he was like, all right, yeah, I'll be back. But it was like over, I think it was a few days away. It was like over the weekend. So I was like pacing, trying to figure out how I could not get rid of this picture. And I came with the idea to just trace the picture and give it to him. All right?
So you kept the original?
I kept the original.
Look at you, 6 years
And then that made me start tracing my pictures and start selling more of them. You know what I mean? Like I was like, oh snap, I could just do this with everything. And so I was hustling, selling a lot of pictures, making money there, and then that stopped. Like that was just a phase in time. Didn't think much of it. I would do stuff like tell stories for money on the bus. And then I sold candy in 7th grade. Was that 7th grade? Yeah, I think that was 7th grade. And my dad, he took me to Kroger one day after Halloween. And everything was on super sale, all the candy, because Halloween's over. And I was like, man, I never thought of ever becoming a candy man or nothing like that. But everything was super cheap, and my dad had some extra ones and things like that. So I just got a whole bunch, and I sold. It was such a short run where I made like $200 in like 2 weeks or something like that. All right,
Profit?
Maybe 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But what made me stop was my mom, because she found this my sheet. I had this full breakdown. First of all, technically you're not supposed to be selling candy at school, whatever. And she's about the rules. That she's always been about the rules. I ain't never been about the rules. like rules are relative to me. But she called me a loan shark, and I didn't know what that meant at the time, really. But I kind of understood it later. So what she was talking about was the fact that with people, when they didn't have money for the candy, I would give them a loan. So I had interest on it. And, I guess an extra 25 cents, on 25 cents is 50%. I was like, okay, yeah, that's a crazy loan. But she's like, man, it's small money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you gouging these kids.
Yeah. So, and it was pretty like extensive though. Like I had everything written out. It was, now to talk about it, I had a credit system, because the loan was legitimately based on how much I could trust people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it's just like, yeah, bro, I don't know. Get this, let me. All right, so make sure you bring it back fast.
Yeah.
You have to give me this much.
How much? How did you collect your debts? Tell me, what was that process like?
You know what's crazy about it is I was always like a little muscular. So I ain't really had that many problems of like getting money back. You know what I'm saying? It was, if I feel like if I did it for a longer period of time, I probably something naturally would have happened at some point. But I really didn't get hit with all that much. To be real, I had no problems. I mean, yeah, there were guys who were bigger than me and all that stuff, but I was pretty respected, so that wasn't no problem.
And how old were you then? When was this?
So 7th grade.
Okay.
How old you are then? Like, I was like 14 probably.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I was maybe 13.
13.
Yeah,
12, 13 actually. Yeah, so we still.
14 to 18.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so 12, 13 is when you really got like, so this whole ledger thing. So she was upset that you were charging these kids interest on candy. And she's like, how are these kids ever going to make this money back? So she didn't like it.
And more importantly, it was just against the rules. You're not supposed to be selling.
Okay.
That's the most important. But I feel you never know my mom. But like I think that was the most important. That's the part that kept me from being able to argue too much with her. I didn't care about the whole loan part, and I really didn't understand what she meant at the time for real. It was just like one of those, all right, mom, and I wasn't like, oh, this is gonna be something super serious.
Right.
Like, all right, cool. I'm gonna just go do something else, you know.
Okay. So what was that something else? What did you do next?
I didn't do anything for a minute. Like, it been a good minute. I kind of just went back into my shell, played sports, went to school, did all the good high school stuff. But I always kept up with business because, well, one, I would watch hella infomercials in the mornings. Like, I used to love infomercials. Pay attention to like how they talked in the products and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then my grandma, you remember how kids would go around and they would go around selling magazines and stuff like that? So my grandma bought me a subscription from one of those kids to Fast Company and Ink magazine.
Okay.
Because she knew I was in the business.
Ink?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had that since I was like 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah.
Going into that, she just got it because she knew I was in business. In 7th grade also, I saw the infomercial for Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and because they were doing like a little telethon type thing. Robert Kiyosaki was making sense to me. I'm like, I rock with this guy. So when my mom was in school at the time, so she was studying Barnes and Noble, and I was like, hey, that's that book. And I got my mom to get me that book. So I was just reading, taking in information, studying through Ink magazine, Ink and Fast Company, as far as keeping up with businesses and their stories and watching the trajectory over the years. I just read about them like 2-3 years ago, and now they're here or there, whatever that might look like. And then Fast Company and Ink went to, when I started having a little money, I bought some other subscriptions. I would get Forbes and Fortune. Those are the main ones. Forbes, Fortune, Fast Company, and Ink were the main ones that I would get consistently, and experiment some other ones here and there. But like, so that just kept me into thinking, which is like, I feel like one of my strengths now is business models and understanding the limitations and the benefits and opportunities presented by a business model. So I think of myself as an architect a lot of times, because really the business model, is the infrastructure.
Yeah.
All right, and that creates the environment for so many else. So you can have, like, even when you remember I had Adventure Atl. Right?
Yeah.
So I thought about that event, right? And the way I created that, and I came up with the initial concept and all that stuff. But one of my homies was the one who had designed the original rooms. Okay. All right, but his design, right, in terms of what should be designed and what made sense, we're all based off of the overall infrastructure and the concept and things like that, right? Just the whole model of the event, what it was supposed to be. Yeah. So, but it's that same idea where if you recognize the business model, you'll know what's happening in the marketplace. You'll know how to look at competition. You'll know how to see where things are collectively being moving, and knowing what you should switch up, right? And sometimes you might have to use one business model to get you to one point and another one after that, right? But it allows you to just analyze everything a lot better. And I had just watched so many companies, business models again and again and again, so many cycles, and what the outcomes were for different variables. And I feel like that really informs how I think about a lot of things in terms of strategy today. Yeah,
that is really amazing. So it's kind of like you started building your Jeff Bezos mind at 6 years old, and by 12 and 13, you're reading books that it takes 25, 35, 45-year-old people to learn when they leave corporate America. So when you, and I know I'm skipping a bit, but now that you're an entrepreneur, when you went into entrepreneur for yourself full time, was that business part your strength? And then what did you find was a weakness for you when it came to building a business?
When it comes to building a business, definitely understanding just what I said, like was
that design piece.
Right? how to build it out, what pieces need to connect, what we need, the type of people we need at the time, when do we need to move into the marketplace more aggressively, all right, when do we need to focus on building. And for that, I'm always feeling like I'm behind, and like there's this hyper urgency I always have, which there's benefits and cons to it, but like that's the strength, right? Just understanding what's supposed to be happening and then knowing what needs to be executed to make that happen.
Yeah.
Right. The weaknesses come with, I personally feel like in management, in terms of I'm so that urgency again, right?
Yeah.
Want to move fast, and I'm seeing these things. How do I get there? When things are not moving as fast as I want them to, right? It feels stressful. It gets very stressful in terms of like, yo, why can't everything move faster? How do we move things faster? And figuring out, and it helps me figure things out faster, and make certain connections. But then there's also a natural, some things are just going to take the pace that they take.
Yeah.
Right. And if I didn't have the responsibility or didn't have that strength of moving things that way, it'll be easier for me to like focus on management more, and feel at least, I don't think I do a horrible job, but I would feel like I'm excelling at it. Right?
Yeah.
And I could excel at it. But that my natural personality and the way I see things lean more towards what I stated earlier, and that makes it more difficult to truly feed, I feel like, the team, especially when I'm at ground zero, right, with my partner, versus like we're already at a certain level and we're only hiring people who are hyper experienced, and it's time to get out here and get it. They got super high standards, and we're all and it's like one of those executive board type situations, and then y'all go build that line of business, it's not there yet. So it's like the patience.
Yeah.
All right. And many people have known me for my lack of patience or whatever, or how I can be with standards. But when things aren't at a certain standards, it's just like bruh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and that makes it really difficult sometimes in management. But there's the beauty of it though, and I think there's the recent scenarios. Managing a team as a whole, but even more so, my business partner, and then my partner in life.
Yeah.
All right. Those all force me to check my ego consistently. All right. And I don't, especially in business, people probably don't sense it as much of me checking my ego. It's like, in your personal relationship, it's
It is.
it's a lot more that
Constant
bubbles up, and it's a lot, and the conversations are different, but it's just always like, all right, there's a natural competitiveness to me, but then always remembering that it needs to be, we're competing to beat that goal, right? And what helps me do that, and why I don't have as much of a problem with it in business as well, is because as long as everything is staying focused on the bigger goal, it is what it is. And I always feel like if things become too focused on the inside, it means the goal isn't big enough. The vision's not big enough. And then if the vision is just not something that makes sense and to be big in what we're doing, that means we don't need to be doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? But so yeah, like management is one area. The another area of weakness is like writing. So what I discovered is things that you're really good at, or at least relatively speaking, right? Or even things that you love doing, you can be bad at, or it could become a weakness in business. And what I mean by that is you might have multiple things that you're good at, but some things you're better at than others.
Yes.
And the way you go about doing some things can become a weakness for the business as a whole. So for me, when I say writing specifically, it takes me longer to write. I could write very well, but my process of going about it takes way too long.
Okay.
Right? Because I get into this perfectionist bag and really think things through and blah, blah, blah. So that really, like, it really, and I don't even say that to be like a one of those like half weaknesses. I'm saying like really, it's to a pain, like just being like, yo, bro, it's taking too long, and then I'm not getting other things done. So I have to minimize me doing that. Period. Like as much as possible, and when I can, just not do it at all.
Yeah.
Like when I'm talking about writing an article or scripting too many things out or things like that, scripting out videos, scripting commercials, and all that stuff for other people.
Yeah.
Like because it's a very creative space for me. I have my very technical, logical sides of my brain and my space and how I move in those spaces, and I can be creative about the bigger picture, but when I'm doing more of a craft like that is writing, I get into creative, and like just time is not a thing. And you know, you got to learn how to figure out where you should be.
Yeah. Have you ever done a strengths assessment?
I did the DISC before. Is that what you're talking about?
So the DISC is definitely, there are various assessments. And the DISC is definitely one. It's kind of a behavioral science-based assessment. And there's so many other ones. You know, you got your personality assessment. But the strengths assessment, as you talk, you have such self-awareness that, like, I kind of want to touch on a few things that you mentioned as you were speaking. So the strengths assessment is all 34. You have 34 characteristics that are all strengths. It's just ranked. So you have your top 5, and then you have a full list of 34 that are all strengths, but they show up differently. So even though I asked you the question about your weakness, I don't technically believe in weaknesses, but the way you explain it makes a lot of sense. So communication could be one of your top 10, right? And as you explain it, some of the things that you have to watch out for when it comes to communication could be your creative process. Because while I have communication as my top 5, it's more of an audible communication that I really do well with. But when you think about our blind spots, which would be your explanation of taking so much time in that creative process to like actually put work out there, that could then it can be your downfall in business. So strengths assessment is typically used in corporate, where they try to help you to be a better employee for your company. So if you focus on your strengths, that way you'll be a better employee. But I think as an entrepreneur, one of the blind spots that isn't necessarily highlighted from a corporate standpoint, but should definitely be aware of, is that perfectionist thing that you mentioned. Because as an entrepreneur, you hold up that progress, even though communication is a strength. Perfectionism is an underlier there that becomes a blind spot or a hindrance to your success. So that was one. Another thing I was gonna. So you mentioned the patience, the motif of patience, and you also have this activator in you, where it's like you can get things done. Like once we brainstorm and we know what needs to be done, we're like, okay, cool. Let's get it. So that activator is, you're the person in the room that after we're done thinking about it, we need to assign roles, and now I'm going to be tracking progress. Which you also have a bigger frame of thought, which is futuristic thinking. So when you think about a goal, you're like, okay, what are we moving towards? It's less about the team perspective and what they like and what they desire in the middle of like, okay, we getting started at activator, and then that futuristic, which is the overall goal. But all the stuff in between, so the people management, the writing, the strategic work, the nuts and bolts, might not necessarily be as enjoyable for you, the day-to-day.
It's not, because, and it's funny, isolated, many of those things actually can be enjoyable for me. But because I have this driver for where I want to go, and it's holding me back from when I want to go, with that juxtaposition, it becomes highly stressful for me. But like I said, writing, love to, I can do like video editing, love to do it in terms of if I just have nothing else to do, and do it to the craft and all this, and that's really cool. I've done many of those things in the past before I had a specific business that I really wanted to take to another level, and it was just more like I'm in college free time. That was like even why I didn't like programming. I liked the program, but again, I just felt like my attention would need to be elsewhere. Even if I stayed in it, I could have only did it to a certain point where I was like, all right, yeah, I gotta, focus on moving this thing. So yeah, that's it's interesting. Like I said, it's not some things by themselves. It's all things considered. Some things become less meaningful for me. Even a good example of that is like my sister was surprised at how like much I appreciate and like structure. All right. But for me, it's a necessity, but it's counterintuitive to a lot of people, and when they think about someone who's like free and all those things. Because I like to be free and move. That's why I feel like I'm not even anywhere near my bag in business yet, because we're still so much in infrastructural system and scale phase. But what my sister saw was when we were younger, I'm like, I can disappear, I can be all kind, like just do whatever, all right, and stay very much so in my creative bag. But what happens is, I get older. And for me, my freedom was all based on having a structure that I appreciate, so I can be free. It wasn't, some people are just like free. That's like, it can be in absence of structure. But before, I'm the youngest. So I had her to create some kind of structure, or at least try to impose her structure. My mom, my dad, whatever that is, as I go out on my own, it's like, whoa, I can't just be free, man. This ain't right, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, then, now in business, oftentimes, like I am like structure part of my roles. In a lot of the things that I'm working on, I am in at least the structure, especially initially, right, to put up systems, as is my partner, areas he's working on. And so I know that while I'm doing this, I'm like, I'm not even still in my full area of natural strength yet, because I have the ability to do structure very well because of that. Like more like detail oriented. I've heard that's like a Virgo thing. I don't really know. But I've heard that from, I'll just say people. And then, but yeah, so I know like, that's one of the things that kind of keeps me excited as well, because I'm like, man, when we get this down pat and I get to move to the next thing, I'm always going to be doing structure at some point. But it's like, all right, as I get more and more detailed people, oriented people around me who have a standard that meet a certain standard that I already like, or my favorite people who are like, maybe say, oh shoot, I didn't even know that could be to that level, and they putting me on to the level we can do stuff at, and now that's the new norm. Then I can really start to have more trust and focus on just the speed of the business, right? But right now, it's like different strengths that you have to lean on, and weaknesses that you have to build around at different levels of the business.
Extreme self-awareness, that's what I would say for you right now, because even as you explain your process, you've been really blessed to build up that structure and that business savvy as a creative, which a lot of creative, they tend to be those starving artists out there because they have these beautiful minds without the structure to execute. So I would just say extreme self-awareness. So it's very, very clear that you've built this like business acumen, and then you have this creative bone, which I think we should pick a little bit more. When I met you, you were working at I think you might have been doing Adventure Time at the time. But I know you've also had jobs along the way. So what was your like career experience? What was your first job like? Maybe not even first job. Because the one job,
college or something. Like, what you? Okay.
So because you said you always wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? And I know the one nonprofit that you worked at, and I'm trying to remember the name for the life of me. Europe. When did you say, okay, I know I want to be an entrepreneur, but I need to get on this track of getting myself a job and getting a paycheck? What was your relationship to getting a paycheck at that time? Because you clearly saw it was necessary.
Yeah, I mean, there's a practicality about me where I never wanted to be an entrepreneur for the sake of being an entrepreneur.
Okay.
I didn't even think as heavily in that term a lot of times. I needed something that I wanted to build. Right? Like, even entrepreneur is a part of the umbrella, right? But you have some people who are like sales, and then you break it down, entrepreneur, right? Or you have people who are like more analyst, but can also be an entrepreneur. Like my core is still like builder artist, right? And I needed something that I wanted to build to a level, right? I could have a bigger vision of that I could focus on, and I never had that. Right? Like, I've been searching for it. So I tried. So I would do plenty of things and do them pretty damn well, and they'll be like entrepreneurial, but it wasn't anything that I wanted to drive and build. So without that, here I am. I'm in this job. I'm in college. I didn't want to. You can ask Courtney. I was like tripping out like 2-3 weeks before I graduated from college, because I did not want to graduate. In my mind, like, I went to college like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna do this because I wanted to play football. That was one of the main things. But my knee, the ACL thing, just made things more difficult. And once I decided to not play football because I didn't want to deal with the politics, after I rehabbed and felt like, hey, I should have made that team, I was like, well, where I leave off? Oh, like after I did that, I started focusing on, like, all right, what do I want to do? All right, in terms of the entrepreneurs, like, because football is the only reason I was in college. You know what I'm saying? Like, now that I'm here, I need to hurry and find that idea. Next thing you know, I'm graduating. I'm like, oh shoot, man.
I don't know what else. You still didn't have that idea.
Yeah, I didn't have the idea. Like, I went through so many different types of ideas and things I considered, but it's always going back to business model, like scalability, and how big can it actually get. I don't want to do anything just to. I didn't want to do anything just to make $20K a year or $30K a year or whatever. Like, I could do that stuff on the side, but I wanted something that I could build. I always wanted to have a company. That's why I'm not just Brandman Sean, right? Like, and it's not just this YouTube channel. I now have
Contraband,
Brandman Network, and I have a team, right? I have a partner. So, like, that's different. So that's why I got to that point. It was like, well, let me just be practical, and I always stay low beyond my below my means. So when it was time to figure out, oh snap, like, I don't want to go back, or I got an idea where I can really scale this out, I already had extra money to focus on. It wasn't always necessarily a lot of extra money, but when people have to turn on that muscle, oh, you gotta downsize and all that stuff, I've never upsized. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you always kept yourself here.
always. I'm not living that far off in terms of financially than what I was 10 years ago in terms of my spending habits and the amount that I'm spending.
Okay, so it sounds like the specific jobs that you've had are not important. It sounds like you did. Well, when I said, let me frame it up. Not important from a sense that you got a job because you wanted to, like, accelerate up the corporate ladder or get a certain role or get a certain salary. The purpose of your jobs were actually to continue to keep your juices flowing until you establish a sense of scalability in an idea.
I would take it even further because the way I approach the jobs or things that I worked on or things I help people with was all about learning. So yeah, I read these magazines and things like that helps give me a foundation of knowledge, but that would be really not too far off from just reading your textbooks in school. But I also got in there by helping a lot of startups, being within a lot of startups, hearing the conversations that are being had very early on. So I pursued and stayed in certain environments. And the cool thing about startups is, you know, you could be closer to the CEO, right? Who might have mentors that are these already successful investors, and because they need you to take less off of them, and they're trying to get a business, they teach you, they teach, right? Well, which is what I have to do, right? We're trying to get you to think more business, like, or being far more transparent than the CEO of Coke would be doing, or whatever company, because they're at that stage. But they're in the stage where they need the best people, and they need to, and part of that is giving, creating the best people, or creating an environment that the best people want to be around, which means the best people always want to learn. The best people always want to grow.
Absolutely.
All right. So you have to create that environment that trains them and helps them out. So I was constantly in those type of environments where I can take in and soak up information ahead of the game. And then on top, so I strategically did that. Like when I graduated and I chose Europe, right? I told myself I was always gonna pick a job for what I could learn and what was gonna grow me, not for the money. Especially since I knew where I wanted to be ultimately. And even one of the smaller, less meaningful seeming goals when I Europe, like my mom would always send me jobs. And I would be like, no, I don't want to work nowhere, Mom. Like, no, I don't care. I'm not trying to work. I told you I'm not trying to work nowhere. Right before college was over, she sends me Europe along with a couple other jobs. And that one, for whatever reason, it stuck. And I was like, dang, because I just wrote a book and I was doing like stuff in the nonprofit world, selling my books to a few people I cut a deal with.
Real quick, what was your book about? Like, just give me a synopsis. What did you write a book about?
So it was called "You Are God: The 3 Core Powers of Success."
Okay.
Right? And it was just basically all the information and things that I studied, codified. And it's a good book, y'all.
It sounds like it. Okay, so there's a spiritual layer in there. Yeah. Okay, I didn't want to take us too far.
And I'll say this because people get like deterred by the term "you are God." I remember giving the book to one girl, and bruh, she just was like, "Oh my God!" Like, it was like, first of all, I feel like God gave me that title. All right, I grew up Christian. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So it's not like a above or any of that kind of weird stuff. But and even more meaningful, if people pay attention, well, a lot of people don't actually read the Bible for real. Like, Jesus actually says you are gods at one point. It was important that it was a little g, obviously. You are not the God, all right, but little g. And even if you take the core concept of Christianity, that God is our Father, if we are his children, then we must be of God.
Him.
We have to be little gods.
Absolutely.
Point blank, right? So, and to me, we are all creators. We create.
I'm with it.
Right? And that's simple. That's really the concept. And then the substance of it are just about the commonalities and the way of thinking that people who achieve success, because you can achieve success in multiple environments that all have their own unique aspects, but the core.
Hey guys, it's Ariel from the Work and Play podcast. If you're getting any value from this channel, and I mean anything from the tutorials to the podcast to the random videos that you see on this channel, then I just ask that you do one thing. Please subscribe. Subscribe and share this to anyone that you think this resonates with, and drop a comment below so I know what other things that you want to see next. Now let's get back to the episode.
Is the same. Right? That's what I always tell people, which is what I did. I don't tell people this out of like just theory. If you train yourself to achieve on a high level, right, you'll now have that muscle built. Right? Most people wait for their passion, something inspiring to say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to become that person then."
Yeah.
Right? And then when your passion comes, you're not even capable of taking advantage of it at a high level because you haven't trained yourself to be able to achieve to that extent.
Absolutely. I think, and I don't know if you follow me here with this connection, but I had another conversation with another guest where we were talking about how the first half of your life might be spent doing a job, right? But Jesus was a carpenter. We don't necessarily talk about his vocation a lot.
Yeah.
But when we do, and we do the work and we build a consistency and we build a proficiency, I think that's our tool whenever we figure out what our passion is, to execute on a passion, to add value to a passion. Because we've already lived this life of substance. We've already developed a competency, right? So I 100% love that. Like, train yourself up. That way when passion hits you, you can do something with that. Otherwise, I mean, you can start whenever, but it makes your life much easier if you do if you execute and allow passion to find you.
Exactly. And as a matter of fact, Bet, check this out. So one of the things that connected with the Europe job was I told myself after writing a book, I was like, yo, I want to do it. I want to speak 50 times next year.
Okay.
All right. And then when I saw the job, I'm like, oh, I'll be speaking almost every day, right? In front of presenting as a teacher.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, that's a even easier way to do it. I don't have to do all the work. It just comes naturally as a part of the job, right? And that was just to build that skill set in myself. Because my way of working, I guess that goes back to the self-awareness you talked about. And actually that same kind of business model thing, except more applying to people, is I put myself in an environment that will make me become whatever I'm trying to become, right? Versus trying to use the willpower all the time, understanding the behavior. It's like, all right, well, yo, this is perfect. If I just have to do this for the job, it's going to happen naturally. Versus I gotta go hustle, and then try to maintain my life versus whatever other job I'm doing. Because I turned down a job that was making. Well, actually, I didn't get that first job, but there were some jobs, opportunities to 60 to 70K coming out of college. Europe was like 40K, or whatever. And I had a conversation with a high up VP. He wanted me to like stay in AT&T and all that stuff. People of color. He was actually Hispanic, but he was like, people of color, bro, really need to get to the money. And I appreciated the conversation, but I knew my path. Right, even when I left Europe. This lady, I love her. I'm not gonna say her name, but she reminded me of Felicia Rashad. She had that old school elegance, man. Just that. Oh man, I love her so much. Just for that, I love black women that have that energy, that old school shit. And she was like, hey, a huge part of the progress of black people, man, with like education. She was trying to encourage me to get my master's, and I also had told her on my exit interview with her that I wanted to teach a lot of people one day. That was one of our goals. That's all I told her. She said, what are you gonna do? I was like, well, I want to teach a lot of people one day. And she put me onto the edge, like, all right, yeah, you use your master's, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, that ain't it. And next thing you know, lo and behold, I didn't realize it when I was doing it initially, but through my YouTube channel, I'm teaching. Right now, through Brandman Network, I'm teaching. Right, and it's a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Right? And that number is only growing. So it's this weird thing where you have to know how to put yourself in certain environments, but you also have to know what's going to be more accurate to the path or direction you're trying to go.
Yes.
And I get better at that through time.
Yeah.
It took me a long time though to have confidence in knowing that I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Versus oh shoot, I'm lost. 'Cause I went through a real period where I was like, bruh, I still don't know the idea that I want to scale. Like, you got to at least do something. Which, actually, talking about environments, I said, literally, I just need to stay in something. That's really how I stayed in music for sure. And got the ideas that I wanted to, because I said, I'm not going to leave this environment.
How did you find music? Because I think that's the one thing I had never known when you transitioned from Adventure Time to music. I don't know if I understood what bridged the gap between the two.
It was just organic.
Okay.
Adventure Time was my introduction to music.
Okay.
Right. And Entrepreneurship was always my introduction to marketing. So it was both were out of necessity. To be honest, music was always like a passion type thing for me. Like, I don't get no job in music. Like, it never sounded like money. Even money, it just didn't even seem like a career to me.
Did you play an instrument? Actually, your sister plays a bunch, so I can imagine you at least got one of them.
Oh, I play I've played around with the keyboard, but and then I played French horn like my sister at one point when I was in middle school or elementary school or something like that. But nah, I didn't. I forgot I had a guitar in college and I got decent at that for a period, but
music wasn't gonna be.
Yeah, I loved, in the way I talked about writing, I always wanted to do an instrument like that, but it was like, I don't got time to learn this.
Okay.
I need to get to where I'm trying to go. Like, I've always kind of just thought that way, even pretty young.
Okay.
But
so you said Adventure Time connected you to music. And then you said marketing
It was just a necessity.
was a necessity.
I always thought marketing mine and all that stuff, but I never thought in the term like I'm a marketer or trying to. Being the channel and the value that I brought in terms of the space that I saw and what I happened to be doing when I was helping people forced me to label marketing and branding.
Okay.
All right. I hadn't ever thought of it in a structure. It was just what I was already organically doing. And my brother and sister are both marketing in terms of what they did in college and all that stuff. And so, young age, I'm like, I'm going this way. Like, I wasn't ever trying to market or be a marketer. Then my brother did music, and I was like, ain't no money in that from what I saw. You know what I'm saying? And plus, like I said, I literally just never thought about music as a career. It was all tech. I did Adventure Atl to help friends out because I was helping them with some small events and things like that. I was the business guy behind the scenes, and then Adventure Atl was my creative concept. And
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I talk about like the builder and all that stuff and all that and more creative, all that like was me. The entire idea. That for me, that was my creative, and I didn't do as much business.
Yeah. Right? Okay.
Like I did, but that wasn't my focus.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I just knew it was going to be like 10 Adventure Times after that. What made you decide not to continue? Well, first of all, for the listeners, Adventure Time was the bombest experience I have ever been to. It was the best curated experience where you go into a room and there is hip hop. You go into another room and there's like indie. You go into another room, there's art. You go into another room, there's good eats. You got your fun. Okay, it's like even from the vendors having some very soulful of the culture zeitgeist type products and energy. It was just the dopest experience. So and we went to, so the second one was even better than the first one. So I just knew we were gonna do like more and more and more. So you made a pivot somewhere. What made you decide not to do Adventure Time anymore?
All right, so I'll give you a little bit about how it started.
Yeah.
One, I was like, in college, I remember people not wanting to do the club environment anymore. Some people. Me, I was that way fast because I always just felt like, bruh, I'm not successful. What am I partying about? Like, successful, at least to me, and what I wanted to do. So I could never get comfortable. I always felt like I needed to be working on something. Then I went to this art scene, all right? Like, okay, not in clubs, but I felt like the art stuff was just literally the club with art on the walls. Like, y'all still got this weird social dynamic where y'all don't necessarily want to rock with other people. There's no communal. If you think about Adventure Atl, it was very open. You could meet people easily. And like, I would see a lot of people end up following each other and all that stuff from that event.
Yeah.
Right? So like conceptually, I wanted that, right? Where we thought about it down, me and my partner in that, thought about it down to like we wanted benches versus individual chairs in certain spaces. So you just a little bit forced to be a little bit closer together in how we arrange certain things. So it was like, all right, let's create an environment. And then the whole thing, I could codify it down to stimulation. I felt a lot of events, people are so worried about people coming to see them that once they get people there, they don't even think about the experience that much.
Right.
I had this many people out to the show or whatever, or everybody watch me. Yeah. I wasn't an artist in terms of a musician or whatever, but I wasn't there to get people to see me. So I only focused on stimulating the audience. All right, what's the best experience and what I would want to do. Right? Oh, I'm all right, I'm a little tired of this vibe. Let me go to this vibe. Like, how do I make this as immersive as possible? Control the lighting, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So then I'm looking for a space to do this.
Yeah.
Right. And I hadn't put it together, but I was looking, and then I finally found the right space that matched the space. But I never thought about it because I just didn't know what the space was. I had never done any kind of event before, really. And when I found a space, it clicked all of a sudden. I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to get a lot of people here. Cause in my mind, it could have been, people can't see this space, but Like it didn't have to be big. It could, like, my mind, it was like a party in terms of size. I was the only thing I didn't realize to do what I wanted to do until I found a space to do what I wanted to do. That I can't just have 100 people here because it's gonna feel empty as hell. It's not gonna it's not gonna be the experience.
Yeah.
So I was like, shoot, man, I can't. I gotta get a lot of people here. All right, what I'm gonna do? Then I started thinking about things. I'm like, this ain't really no party no more. And then I was like, bro, I gotta call it a festival, like, for it to feel bigger,
Yeah.
right, and to start to attract people who weren't there. And I started branding and all those kind of things to get it there. Once I did it, I was done. That was my art. The work was complete. Yeah. I did it once, and then people were like, yo, that was so dope.
Yeah.
I was like, nah, bro, you don't know how long that took. You know how much work that went into that.
Into that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it did, but people kept saying it, and I had quit my job and I wasn't going back. So I was like, bro, let's run it back. Ran it back 8 months later.
Yeah.
Bam, even bigger because of the organic reach after the first time.
Yeah.
Everybody, because it was so different. People are doing a lot of, honestly, and I saw people around the city take the concepts and things like that to be real. But like, these experiences when you are in a building and going into different environments and different rooms are a little bit more common now. Still, nobody's touching on what I want to do as a whole, because my vision is actually way bigger than what I could do. What I did originally was dilute it.
Got you.
And because I only have so much money.
Resources,
you know
exactly.
Every single time, though, I got closer and closer to what I wanted to look like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ran it back because people were like, "Hey, all right," and I definitely wasn't gonna do it the third time.
Got it.
Definitely wasn't gonna do it the third time.
You knew you weren't gonna do it. You knew when you got done with the first one, this was a masterpiece for what you could do with the resources you had, and you were like.
But I wasn't even thinking about it as like final. And like mentally, it was just like, all right, cool, I did it. And it wasn't until people asked me that I realized, oh, no, I'm done. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Got it.
I didn't, like, we can do this again. Some people was like, you should do this every month, which never would have ever been a thing. Like, that just was way too much. Because I was fronting all the money, like 90% of it. And then every single time it got bigger, still fronting the money. So the second time, did it, because people say, bring it back. Lost the location. Well, because of gentrification, all that stuff, all they got sold and everything. Like, if you see what's there in that building now, because it was a dope, like, what?
It was perfect. I was like, how did you find this place?
Like, in the middle of, like, it was like in the middle of nowhere, yet literally in the middle of the city.
Right.
At the same time.
And it was the destination. You would think, like, how did I never see this location before this party or festival?
Now they got rid of that old 1920s school building or whatever, and now it's like some nice new apartments, right? Yeah. But all right, so I did that the second time, but the building was gone, so I definitely knew, like, because I didn't want to do work, find a new building, blah blah blah, and I just didn't want to do it. I wasn't thinking to do it. Moved on, had the channel that started moving.
Got it.
And was doing still stuff in the tech world. My homie, who was like my main partner and really making it happen, because he was the one who really had a lot of the creative direction in terms of the rooms and all that stuff. He kept on asking, and a homegirl of ours like saying, yo, bro, you gotta do it, you gotta do it. And what happened was, after all that saying no, the homegirl started working at this warehouse, and my homie Josh went. And they're like, yo, bro, you gotta do it, bro. I found a new location, it's perfect. And the way my mind works, because remember I said that event was creative for me. It was a creative part of me. He was like, bro, no, man, all right. He's like, no, see this space. And man, I should have never went. But because I told him I didn't want to do it, but that's like my homie, so it's just like, all right, bro, I'm gonna go, bro. And literally, when I went, I was like, fuck. I gotta do it. I gotta do it again, because I instantly knew everything that I would do and just how that went or whatever. But after that third time, I just still had so much momentum in the things that I wanted to do, and the business model of what a festival required. it just didn't make sense for me, period. Like personality wise, how fast I wanted certain money to come, how frequently I could do it on that particular scale, and how many people I would have to be able to work. I would have to work with for my personality consistently.
Yeah.
Right. And just be relying on it. So, yeah, I was like, hey, if y'all want to run this thing, and maintain the brand at this level and all this stuff, bet we can do that. Like, let y'all do that. But I'm gonna go do this other stuff, and I'll help and advise and all that stuff. But my homie didn't really want to do it. Anyway, you know, and that was also when I learned in business, got a true reflection of what it looks like when you do too much.
Yeah. And
you don't build a system and team around you, because there really was no way for me to leave that in that thing to keep going. Yeah. All right. But to be fair to myself, I never planned it to be big. I mean, to keep going. It's weird because the way my mind works, I only did it. Like, I didn't maximize my revenue every single time I went out. For some reason, I would only build stuff the proper way for it to start to get big. And get as big as possible. So it was built as a brand in the way I rebranded and all that stuff to be able to sell and all that stuff. Right. I had already started positioning and doing all that stuff, even though I didn't know I wanted to do it. It was like, for some reason, you
just think that way. You think foundation, and then it go. You know it's going to be scalable.
Exactly. But the only thing that I really didn't get to is really for real building out a team in that particular way with that kind of thing in mind, and you know that reflected as much. Right? But it was also because I had to be convinced in the second 2 times, and the first time was supposed to be the only time, you know. So, but now in business, you know, I already, you know, mentioned, okay, we got a team, and I'm very, very much so don't do stuff alone, because every time I did stuff with people, I did, you know, something 2-3 times bigger than the stuff that I've done alone. Right? Just period, and I do it quickly because I'm always doing stuff and doing it at a pretty high level, but it's never as quickly and as great as what I've done when I get with some people and use the same talents to push towards a bigger vision.
Dope. So I feel like if I would sum up this first part of your career journey, because there's so many different things to get into, but I would sum it up with, you found different currents to go into, and then you used that momentum to take you as far as you wanted it to go before you found your next project that you wanted to harness that momentum and create new growth in a new area. And I could ask you so many questions about how you started your YouTube page, how you started to build out Brandman Sean as a brand, as a personal brand. I can even ask you what you do for your clients individually. But I think what's really, really interesting would be to hear how you went from, you also mentioned this earlier in your story. You talked about you were a hustler at 6. And I always talk about there's a difference between a hustler and an entrepreneur. So I would say the first half of your career, or actually the first part, is you building this infrastructure and this concept of scalability, and even like your own aptitude to build things as an entrepreneur. And I swear, self-awareness, when we go back and look at this video, self-awareness is crazy. Yeah. So my question is actually, when did you start to move from kind of B2C, in a sense, to B2B and start thinking more agency-like? So I'm skipping a whole chunk of like that YouTube growth, your individual personal brand, you building out other people's personal brands, and then helping them kind of watch them grow in your institution type community. But then there was a time where you, as an entrepreneur, decided, I want to do more big ticket contracts. Right. I'm imagining. So what did that growth look like? And I don't want to layer in too many questions, but I think that teamwork is probably in there, in a nuance of how you establish that.
Yeah, well, for me, again, I alluded to this earlier, it was really about the function of there's only but so much. That was the most important part, right, that I could do in terms of education without taking the agency seriously. Because part of agency, I talk to my partner about this all the time. I'm like, hey, bro, agencies are a low margin business. It's a high labor, low margin. It's a lot of work, low margin. And I come from a tech way of thinking where I tell people all the time, like WhatsApp had 50 employees when they sold for 19 billion. All right. Now everything can't be WhatsApp or whatever, but it's still just the scalability on tech is ridiculous. So I'm like service. Oh, like it just didn't make sense.
Got it.
And then you go back to having to deal with so much people, so many people and their own agendas, even if it's not like people. No matter if people come to you, right? People come to you in the agency world, right? And then they don't want to do the stuff that they're paying you for. It was just like I didn't like that, right? In terms of just if I didn't have to, but once I get a vision for something, just like I didn't want to do the Adventure ATL again, but once the vision's there, it's like bam, that's how I move into those currents that you're talking about. Like once the vision's there, I just bam, connect all the dots. So that for me was understanding, to take this network opportunity as huge as it can go, to be in the best position, also need to take this agency seriously. I was basically doing a mini agency, unwillingly, because just making money to live. But I wasn't doing it seriously in how an agency would have to need to be built out. So one, that market opportunity made me say, all right, cool. How do I need to build this out? What does this need to look like? Being able to link with my partner helped with that extremely, a whole lot, because I had somebody else who understood a lot of that vision and wanted to do many of the same things. And then from there, my environment is, if you can hustle, that's one thing. And then if you can start building, in music especially, there's a lot of things that you can do, all right? Like in a lot of other industries. I'm talking about from business side, not as talent necessarily, because that's just a different space. But like from a business acumen standpoint, you can do that in music, because the margins are so slim in general. I talk about slim margins, like just the music industry in general. Like you can be working with a artist that has, big shows, Grammys, everybody knows, loves them, and them artists is making millions, and then the label will be like, "Hey man, we got $3,000, for you to work." It's like that. That's how like cheap. Right? A lot of influencers like to work with companies versus the music industry, because music, companies, what the budgets look like at the Deltas, all those brands.
Yeah.
Music is like an eighth of that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. All right, so if you can do that in that like hyperbolic chamber, this tight environment, then you can really get some things done. But a part of creating that space and that flexibility is this marriage, right? The education side, it's not as labor, so it also helps create certain margins that you can't do on the agency side. The agency creates just certain acumen, skill set, and insight that you won't necessarily get on the other side. All right, so understanding that pairing, that's just like a loose way to say it, and then understanding the market opportunity on the agency side. Once I saw, even in the outside of the connection with the education company, I saw some market opportunities and for where agencies need to evolve to better serve the clients. That's when I said, okay, I could do this B2B thing. But if you I kind of like analyze everything I said, it goes back to what are the opportunities there, all right? What does the margin look like? What business model needs to happen? And what will it be benefiting? Can we create an environment where a company can be built versus just me doing this solo? Okay, you check off certain boxes, the vision's there and it makes sense. Let's go do it. And then everything comes down into the specifics of what an agency looks like in that B2B world. But for me, I'm oftentimes just following like basic economics. That's what it comes out. Like everything is economics to me.
Okay. What would you say for I guess on your education side, so for what would you say is the biggest result? Like, what would you say that clients come to you, like the biggest result that clients come to you for on the B2C side as well as the B2B side?
B2C is either increasing their social media followers or increasing their streams. Everybody wants streams of music. The B2B side is the exact same thing, except there's an additional, like, I need somebody who can do this consistently. Or there's people who are already at a certain level that it's not about build me up from scratch, right? It's about, all right, how do I capitalize on this new moment? How do I move my brand into a new audience? All right, it gets a little bit more nuanced, but it still is broken down into, well, now I need to increase my streams in this audience. I need to increase my visibility in this particular audience first, it being my first audience that I need to do that with. But the mechanics are the same. And the last thing I'll say with the B2B side is also, because you're working with another business, right? They're looking for a lot of times convenience, right? And trust. Because oftentimes they might have the capability of maybe hiring or figuring out, but I was like, I just need to find somebody who can do this where I don't have to focus on it.
Yeah.
And because I want to manage, or where's my strength in my business, who else can handle this? And we're here for that as well. Like, that's our ideal customer a lot of times on that side. Like, yeah, you can do this, but you don't want to do this. All right?
Yeah. Let us take that off your hands.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Got it. All right. So I think we talked a lot about like your journey. I think that's the most, it's no most interesting. It's just all of it intertwined. And there's so many other questions I could possibly ask you. But I'm dying for myself to understand how, all right, I'll give you a little context. Well, I'll give you the point first and then I'll bring it to context. For myself, I'm really curious to know your perspective on how you either envision or currently manage that fun side that I used to see when we used to hang out more so years ago, with this huge growth that you are starting to see as a business person and the future goals that you have as an organization / empire, right? And the reason I ask you that is because I remember before I really tapped into my entrepreneurial journey, like I was just corporate and I would see you come through and we would just be hanging out and you would go duck off and be on your computer doing what you need to do, or you would be building your YouTube page. Now that I'm 100% into this, I feel it. I feel that I could be around friends, I could do whatever, but I'm always working on my business. And so I'm in this space where I always want to balance. These conversations help me balance work and play, right? But I also understand how, as I get further and more built out, I want to maintain that level of jovialistic. I don't know if that's the word. I want to maintain that level of play in what I do, because I feel like I would be following in your footsteps, but I'd be remiss if I were to forget about this interaction and what feeds my soul. So you're a father, you're a spouse, a partner, you're a business partner, and you're a brother, a family member, and you're a friend. So as you find all this business success, where do you find that level of play, and how do you infuse it into everything you do, or just a few things that you do?
Well, when it comes to doing business successfully, the best way to begin doing it right in terms of the fun part is doing it poorly. All right. And because I've done a poor job in maintaining the fun part of myself. All right. But that comes from what's necessity in the business. So people oftentimes compare it to like having a baby. And I've always heard that. But I ain't had no baby before. But now I had a baby. You know what I'm saying? So I understand the level of nurturing and attention to detail. I knew it intellectually, but being in it now, I definitely get it a lot more, right? Of why people use that as an analogy for business, because there's just moments of time that it has to just be this. Nothing else can matter, right? And then the goal then becomes, as you get to certain levels, is, all right, how do I continue to build my business out where I can put myself in positions that I have this jovial, all right? Because there's some stages of business where you have to spend so many times in stuff that aren't your strength, right? And things that you don't necessarily like doing, that like it's just gonna drain you. Like, you can't be able to focus on just that recharge in the same way, especially when you're talking about moving at a certain speed. But what happens is, like, all right, here's one of my things that I always hold on to. As someone who never wanted to work a job, I actually had one job that I loved, and that was working in Europe. And that was the one job I always tell people my experience, because of the good that it was doing, the little actual position, right, and the people I was working with, which is where I learned these are the things that you need to really enjoy. Like, people can be a big company and people say it's great, but they're in the wrong part of the company with the wrong boss, trash, and it can be the reverse, right? So I learned that, one, I could definitely love what I'm doing day to day, but it was the most emotionally taxing and emotionally invigorating experience, right, at the same time. So that kept me going. I would literally, you guys, Courtney, there'll be days, man, I'm like, man, I'm bored, man. I can't wait till Monday. You know what I'm saying? Like, go back to school, deal with these kids. But so now it's like, how do I build that in my own job, right, that I'm doing now, in business? Because yes, I'm in control of a lot of things and building things out, but there's still seasons. And now that I have more people on my team, I'm not there yet. Like I just told you earlier, actually. Infrastructure, I'm still so much on that part where I'm doing things that I'm good at, but it's not that part that, oh, this is just, you know, where he just wake up and he alive and everything he does is just giving him energy. I'm not spending no time, or very, very small time on the things that take away or slow me down. Because I move at a pretty fast speed naturally and pretty high energy. So to kind of like summarize that and why I said all that again is, one, there's a phase where there ain't no balance, right? And people, a lot of times, I actually say this after so I don't interrupt it. There's a phase that there's no balance. And then you get to a point where you start to have a lot of leverage. You have more control, and you can start creating what looks like balance. Right? It becomes your balance for life. Because even if you're working, you can start putting yourself in a position where the things that you're working on are the things that energize you. Right? The things that you're just playing a game almost because you're winning and getting better at the things that you want to get better at. Right? And that just becomes the life, and you have other people to handle more and more of the other spaces. That's what balance begins to look like. And then you have family and things like that. It's like, how do you add that in, right? And how do you do that exact same concept within your family? Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. The thing that just matters is spending the time with my family, right? And being at certain things. Well, shoot, now I see why people have a cook, have a maid, and all these other things. You start to do the exact same thing in that space. So now on a business, personal life side, it's all just the stuff that matters most to you. All right. And then obviously the frame stuff in general, because when you have something taking your energy that much, like looking at my girl, right? Okay, taking care of a baby, and obviously the woman far more. In terms of like what they do and have to go through, don't have the energy to even have fun at certain points, right? And it's that same way in business where you're just so taxed, you don't have the energy to have that fun. So you have to go through that phase, and don't rob yourself of the bigger win by trying to maintain balance, right? Throughout the process, you have to go through those seasons, just like raising a child, all those other things. Hey, look, just a good example of success. And the kids are out the house, right? But how long did it take to get to that? But now you doing whatever you want to do, right? That's like big successful company. You done made that money, and now you just doing whatever you want to do. But people mess up because they keep listening to rich people talk about the stuff that they doing. But they're not talking about and looking at the stuff they did to get there. Like, balance and spirituality. But she didn't do all that to get there.
Right. It did not look that beautiful
like that.
when you
The reason she's talking going so hard on it now is because she went through some ugly shit. Right? to get there, right? But it was necessary to get there.
Yeah.
But that's why she's going so hard on this work-life balance or or whatever, or and all this stuff now.
Yeah.
But they're in a place where that balance won't interrupt anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Some people trying to balance, and then you balance, you really can't put much into anything, so none of it's gonna go to a high level. You're just
mediocre at everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually down to ask you another question now. So, of course, I don't have kids yet, and of course, I don't even have a husband yet. So, or said on you,
universe.
Right? It's in the universe.
You just haven't found you.
Absolutely. I'm asking a very granular question, so. All of that is coming, but I'm just curious about your growth in that you established a certain level of success as an entrepreneur, and then you had a baby, right? At this level where you had your baby and the level of success you've reached, do you feel like you gave yourself a running start enough on your business to continue that growth on your business and at a good place where you can still watch the baby grow? Or do you feel like, there could have been a little bit more closing of the gap there if I had gotten a little bit more success and then had the baby, or had the baby earlier as I was working on? Like, how much overlap should there be when a person wants to have a baby as an entrepreneur?
I can't give nobody personal advice. That's whatever you got going on and what you want to do in your personal decisions, like that timing of it.
Yeah.
But when it happens, it's going to happen, and there's just things that can't be compromised.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to spend a certain amount of time. There's going to be some nights to crying and all that stuff where you literally just don't have that time for business. So I say maintain that choice as long as you have that choice, because you'll lose a lot of choices once you have a kid.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Maintain that choice as long as you can. I think as a woman entrepreneur, I'm curious how that take things as they go mentality is gonna work, especially when like.
What do you mean?
Well, so as a man, you talk about the difference between you and your partner and how you guys are how she's better at like the natural mommy stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So that can sometimes be taxing for you, right? Because you're either focused on the business, and that allows you to let her do the taxing stuff for the baby sometimes, and then come in and do daddy stuff too. But as women, we're good at doing the mommy stuff, and sometimes we overextend and we do really well at the business stuff too. So just the give and take, you only have 2 eyes and 24 hours type of thing. As the one who's the best with and I might not even be the best with my kid. Let's just be whatever. But as the woman, sometimes we are the one who are best with the kids, and we have to figure out how to balance. So I think for me, sometimes I wonder, and women are also very super analytical when we come to these things. Everything has to be the right time. We've got the biological clock. We got all this stuff. And so that's probably why I asked you the question about like, would I want to have a baby in the next year or so? I really feel like I would probably want 5 years of success in my business before I wanted to bring a baby in.
That's real. You would at least need to be like the most ideal situation is not the most ideal, the lowest ideal, right, is at least being in a position where you have some level of momentum and clarity, right, of what scale looks like, and start building towards that.
Okay.
All right. Like for me, all right, now I was like, 9 months. Now we got to really go. But right before that happened, I'd already got the clarity like a month before she was conceived or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that was cool. It was like, I'm working on that. Now I just got to work even faster. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I'm building momentum. Everything is momentum, and not clipping that. But if I was still in a period where I'm just trying to find what I want to do, it would feel, I can't even imagine where I would be. You know what I'm saying? That would be a whole other space.
Yeah.
Most ideal, we making a certain amount of money.
Right.
And things are there. Right now, so much of the money is invested right back into the business. Right. I'd much rather hire somebody that makes more than me, and I can have a peace of mind to focus on the parts that I need to, versus pay myself more and stymie the growth of the business at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm not even in a place where I'm really capitalizing and making that much money. The business is doing well. The trajectory is is nice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But this ain't what is it, harvest or whatever? Which
Yeah,
one?
this isn't the season of harvest.
Yeah, this ain't that season right
I got you.
I'm not picking up the bags. I'm just letting it grow.
Yes. You've planted the seeds and you're just letting it grow.
Yeah.
This has been such an amazing conversation. I appreciate everything you've shared with me, from your story, the stuff that I had no clue about, and then even some life lessons that I can take. I remember calling you when I was getting ready. I was like, should I apply for Europe? I really think this is an awesome organization. Life took me another direction, but I've always been wanting to pick your brain in so many different places of this journey. So I'm honored. This has been awesome. So one of the things that I like to do on the podcast is actually reach back. As we move forward, we're gunning forward. I never want us to forget about the people who are behind us on their way. And I particularly think about, for you, the young people at Europe who you probably haven't seen in so long and are still on their journey of making something of themselves. So as you think about, as we close out, I want you to just kind of think about your wisdom, your Brandman Sean wisdom, and reach back to someone who is on their journey. Either they haven't gotten started or they still haven't reached that level of clarity, and they need a little bit of inspiration or information or insight to make the next step. So what would you say to that person? Who would that person be, and what would you say?
I don't quite know the details of where some of them are to reach to talk too much on them, but okay, well, I know one of them for sure. So Shanice has this dope business called Nice Scent candles. Y'all check those candles out. Period. They're really dope. Like, and I'm not like it helped me become a candle person, because I'm not a candle person, but I love hers. And she's really been doing her thing, staying consistent in the business. So number one is like, actually stay doing it, because most people don't last that long. People have nice ideas, they even do it one time, and then but the difficulty is hard to maintain it. So just keep that, because you're dope already. What you're doing is dope, and then now like focus on what scale might look like and building beyond yourself. And I'm sure she's done that already to a certain extent, but without knowing all the details, like continue to focus on what scale looks like and make those hard decisions that are required, because growing, right, whether it's the amount of products you have, the type of people you're working with, or having to leave some partnerships and focus on a different line of partnership, whatever that looks like in the candle business, you know what I'm saying? If you want to grow it to big money, figure that out, study, and make that decision for your business.
That's lit. And you got real specific. There's somebody out there who you don't even know, but they also have a candle business. And they was like, I needed to have that conversation today. So again, I just want to thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for watching.
Dope, man. You had some good questions, you know what I'm saying? You good at this. I don't know what episodes you did, but you keep this thing up too.
Hey, I will.
I'm reaching sideways.
Look, seriously, I took that for sure. So if the folks want to follow you, stay connected with you, or just continue to watch your growth, how can they get connected with you?
At Brandman Sean on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Also, I'm about to go be TikTok famous right now. So at Brandman Sean on TikTok too. Check me out over there. And everything else would find its way. You'll get hit with an ad or something. So
because he is the man for that as well. So if y'all have any questions, we are definitely going to be doing the replay. I can't wait for the live replay with you. But we're going to
live right now?
No. We're going to do the live replay as soon as this episode launches. So I'll be able to get you back and have another conversation with you. But until next time, thank y'all for watching. Thank you for listening. Until next time, peace out.